You've always been stubborn. Even Mom said you were impossible to argue with. The mention of Vivian prickled me. Gina really talked about her mother as if she were trying to erase her from her memory. Vivian knew when to insist and when to back off, I said quietly. It's a shame you didn't inherit that trait. The conversation ended quickly after that. Gina mumbled something about calling back later and hung up. I knew she wouldn't give up trying to get me back, not because she cared, but because of the money. The week went by quickly. Raymond called every day with reports of showings and potential buyers. Interest in the house was overwhelming. 12 families had viewed it in the first 3 days, and half of them expressed serious intentions. On the 7th day after the showings began, Raymond called with the happy news, "Mr. Cunningham, we have a proposition." His voice sounded excited. $860,000 cash. Quick closing on the deal. The buyers are an elderly couple, recently retired, moving from New York. They love the house, especially the view of the pond. I felt my heart beat a little faster. $860,000 was more than I'd bargained for. Including agency commission and taxes, I'd be left with about $750,000 net. Together with my existing savings, that was more than enough to ensure a comfortable old age. I accept the offer, I said without hesitation. Good, Raymond exclaimed. I'll prepare the documents and contact their realtor. We can close the deal. In 2 weeks if everything goes smoothly. What about my daughter? I asked. When will she be notified of the sale? It's standard procedure for then-new owners to give the tenants 30 days to move out after the deal closes, Raymond said. But in this case, since the buyers want to move quickly, we can notify your daughter as soon as the preliminary contract is signed. That will give her more time to find a new place to live. Do that, I agreed. The sooner she knows, the better. After the call, I sat in a chair by the window, looking out at the street and pondering my decision. Part of me felt bitter and disappointed. It wasn't how I'd envisioned my life ending. I had hoped to spend my final years with a loving family, perhaps, with grandchildren visiting me every weekend, with a daughter who cared for me out of love, not money. Instead, I was selling my house to get revenge on a woman who saw me only as a source of income. But another part of me felt a strange satisfaction. Gina would finally know the truth. That she'd been living in my house all these years, not the other way around. That I wasn't a helpless old man dependent on her favor. That I could have pulled the rug out from under her at any time. And that's exactly what I was doing now. Vivian probably wouldn't have approved of such revenge. She always said that anger destroys the soul of the one who feels it, not the one at whom it is directed. But Vivian didn't see what our daughter had become since her death. Didn't hear the cold words. Didn't feel the scornful looks. Hadn't endured the humiliation day after day, year after year. I sighed, looking at my wife's picture on the nightstand. I'm sorry, darling, I whispered. But sometimes even the most patient people break down. The next few days passed in paperwork. I signed documents, answered lawyers' questions, submitted bank statements. Raymond handled the process skillfully, explaining each step and warning of potential pitfalls. Gina called several times, still trying to convince me to come back. I answered evasively, not wanting to give her false hope, but not revealing my plans either. Let her find out everything from the realtor like a regular tenant. It would fare. On the 10th day after I left, Raymond called with the news. Mr. Cunningham, the preliminary contract has been signed. The buyers have put down a deposit of $86,000. Now, we can officially notify your daughter of the sale. How do you plan to do that? I asked. The standard procedure is to send a registered letter notifying her of the sale and demanding that she vacate the premises within 30 days off closing. But in your case, I think a personal meeting will be more effective. I can stop by tomorrow and explain everything." "She'd be furious," I warned. "Don't worry," Raymond grinned. "In 15 years in this business, I've seen it all. Tenant anger is a common occurrence in real estate sales." I agreed to his plan, but asked him not to reveal my involvement until the very end. Raymond promised to maintain confidentiality, but warned that at the closing of the transaction, my name will inevitably appear in the documents. "If your daughter scrutinizes the deeds, she will see that you are the seller," he said. "I can't hide that." "I understand," I replied. "It won't matter by then. The important thing is that she doesn't know now." That evening, I couldn't sleep for a long time, imagining Raymond coming to Gina and telling her the news. How her face changed when she realized she couldn't live in that house anymore. How she calls Noah in a panic, telling her they are being evicted. Part of me felt gratification at these thoughts, but another part of me felt a strange emptiness. Was this really what I wanted? To take revenge on my own daughter, even if she deserved it? I got out of bed, walked to the window. Night. Slide was twinkling with lights, living its life, oblivious to the little human dramas playing out behind closed doors. Somewhere out there in a big house on a quiet street, Gina was sleeping, unaware that tomorrow her life would change. And I, her father, was the one who set the mechanism in motion. "You're doing the right thing," I said to myself. She chose this path herself when she decided money was more important than family. But somewhere deep inside, a voice similar to Vivian's whispered, "Are there Winterson family wars, Earl? Or only losers?" I didn't know the answer. I knew the call from Gina would follow soon. Raymond Prescott was supposed to meet with her this morning and break the news of the house sale. I sat in my small apartment trying to read the detective, but the words blurred before my eyes. My thoughts kept returning to what was happening now in my former home. How would Gina react? What would she say? Would she scream, cry, or coldly analyze the situation like Noah would do? The phone rang at exactly 11:30. I looked at the screen. It was her. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, and answered it. "Hello? What the hell is going on here?" Gina's voice was ringing with anger. No greeting, just straight to the point. "What are you talking about?" I decided not to make it any easier on her. "Some realtor was here." She was practically screaming. "He says the house is sold and we have to move out 30 days after the closing. There's some kind of mistake, right? You got something wrong with the rent. This is it. The moment I've been preparing for the last 2 weeks. The moment when truth finally comes out." "No, Gina, there's no mistake," I replied calmly. "The house has indeed been sold." "But how is that possible?" Her voice trembled. "You've been paying." "Rent on time. I checked the bills myself." "How can the landlord evict us?" "The landlord can do whatever he wants with his property," I said, "including selling it." "Then we need to contact him immediately," Gina insisted. "Explain the situation. Offer to buy the house ourselves. Noah and I have a good credit history." "We could." "Gina," I interrupted her, "you don't understand. The landlord's already made his decision. The house is sold for $840,000. The money has been paid. The documents have been signed, but this is crazy. We've lived here for over 5 years. Wes'll have some rights." I could hear the desperation in her voice. "Earl, y'all get to help us figure this out. You had the landlord's contact, right? You paid him directly." I closed my eyes. This is it, the moment of truth. "No, Gina, I didn't pay any master. I paid you." "What are you talking about?" She obviously didn't understand. "Of course, you paid me and I paid the landlord. It was more convenient." "No," I said slowly, enunciating each word clearly. "You didn't pay any landlord because there was no landlord. The house had always belonged to me." Silence hung on the line. I could almost see Gina trying to make sense of my words, her face changing from incomprehension. Tashik, what? What did you say? She finally squeezed out. I said I own the house, I repeated. I bought it 20 years ago after your mother died with lottery money. I was never a tenant. That was Allie. No. Her voice became quiet, almost a whisper. It's impossible. You couldn't. You always said you were renting this house, that you were barely making ends meet. I lied. I confirmed, because I knew if I told the truth about the winnings in the house, you and Weston wouldn't leave me a dime. You were always like that, begging and begging and begging. College money, money for your first car, money for your wedding. You were never grateful, always wanting more. This is crazy. Gina couldn't seem to believe what was happening. You're saying that you lied to us for 20 years? That you let you think we were helping you when really? When in fact you were living in my house and charging me money for the privilege? I finished for her. Yeah, that's right. And now you've sold the house. Her voice suddenly became harsh. You're throwing your own daughter out on the street. Is sold? My property, I corrected. The very property you were demanding money for. The very property you threatened to kick me out of if I didn't increase the rent. Remember what you said? Pay the rent or get out. Well, I did. Now you have to clean up. You're a monster. Gin axled. How could you do this to your own family? To your own daughter? What will Avery say when she finds out her grandfather threw us out on the street? I don't throw anyone out on the street, I countered. You have 30 days to find a new place to live with your income. That shouldn't be a problem, and leave Avery out of this. She's the only one in your family who's ever treated me with respect. Shit. Despise you when she finds out the truth, Gina hissed. We all will. Weston, Noah, the whole family. You'll be alone, Earl. All alone. Her words should have hurt me, but in a strange way, I felt only tired. Tired off lies, the pretense, the toxic relationship that had lasted for years. I'm already alone, Gina, I said quietly. I've been alone since your mother died. You and Weston have never been around except when you needed money, so your threats are about 20 years too late. On the other end of Feline, I heard Gina sob. For the first time in the entire conversation, there was real emotion in her voice, not feigned outrage. It's not fair, she said in a shaky voice. You have no right to say that. We took care of you. You took care of my money, interrupted. You don't even know what medications I'm on, Gina. You don't know what books I read, what music I listen to. You weren't interested in my life, only my wallet. That's not true. She was outraged. I cooked your meals, washed your clothes, took you to the doctor, and made me feel like a burden for every favor I did, I added. Reminded me every chance you got of how hard it was for you to be with me, counting how much electricity I use and how much water I waste. That's not caring. Gina. It's business. I can't believe you feel that way about us. Her voice got quieter. After all we've done for you, and I can't believe you can't see the truth, I replied. But it doesn't matter anymore. The house is sold. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. I suggest you start looking immediately. You're going to regret this, Gina said, her voice threatening. I'll tell everyone what you've done. All your family, all your neighbors, everyone will know what you're really like. Tell them, I shrugged, though she couldn't see it. I have nothing to hide, nothing more. I pressed the end button and put the phone down on the table. My hands were trembling slightly. Despite my outward calm, the conversation wasn't easy for me. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that the truth had finally been revealed. Sadness that my relationship with my daughter was finally ruined, and the emptiness that comes after a long-awaited but bitter triumph. I stood up and walked to the window. The day was clear, Sonny. People were walking down the street, minding their own business, unaware of the little family drama playing out in one of the apartments. Life went on as usual, indifferent to her problems. The phone rang again 15 minutes later. This time it was Weston. I'd almost expected it. Of course, Gina had called her brother right away, told him everything. I took a deep breath and answered. "Weston, what the hell are you doing?" My son's voice was full of rage. Gina just called me in hysterics. "You sold the house? Seriously? You rethrowing? Your own kids out on the street?" "I sold my property," I replied calmly. "Something I had every right to sell, but why now? Why so suddenly?" Weston clearly couldn't understand my motives. "And why the hell didn't you ever tell us you owned the house?" "Because you'd immediately start demanding your share," I answered bluntly. "Like I always did. Every time I had money, you and Gina would immediately put your hand out. Remember when you asked me for a loan for your beesiness? Every time we saw each other, every call ended with you asking for money. That's not fair." Weston was indignant. "I asked for help because I believed you wanted me to succeed. Because you're my father, damn it. And I have helped." I reminded him many times, but it was never enough, was it? It always needed more. And where's the gratitude? Where's the respect? You unlike-called me when you needed money. You didn't even visit me on my birthday last year. I had an important meeting. Weston defended himself. I couldn't cancel it. "Of course you couldn't," I sighed tiredly. "There's always something more important than an old father. But when you need money, suddenly there's time to make a call. I can't believe you feel that way about us." I could hear the resentment in Weston's voice. "We're our family, Dad. We took care of you." "No, Weston," I shook my head. "You took care of my money and what I could do for you, not me. And that's why you decided to get revenge. Throw Gina and her family out on the street. That's your way of teaching us a lesson." "I'm not throwing anyone out on the street," I repeated patiently. "They have 30 days to find a new place to live. With their income, that shouldn't be a problem." "30 days is nothing," Weston exclaimed. "Do you know how hard it is to find a good house? In Slidell now? Prices have skyrocketed." "I know," I said. "That's why I sold mine. $840,000 was a good price." Weston was silent for a moment, digesting the information. $840,000? His voice changed. "What are you going to do with that money?" "That's it." As soon as the large sum was mentioned, Weston's tone immediately changed from angry to interested. "Typical. It's none of your business," I replied. "My money is my business, but it's the family home." He objected. "Mom would never approve of what you're doing." The mention of Vivian prickled me, but I didn't fall for the manipulation. "Don't drag your mother into this," I said sternly. "She would never approve of the way you two have treated me all these years either. She'd be disappointed to see how greedy her children have grown up to be." "That's low, Dad." Weston's voice turned cold. "Using Mom against us, no lower than using her memory to manipulate me," I parried. The conversation was clearly going nowhere. Weston continued to accuse me of betrayal, and I remained adamant. Eventually, he gave up. "You know what? Do whatever you want, but don't come back to us when you're alone and sick. Gina and I washed our hands of it." "You did this a long time ago," I said quietly. "Long before today." I ended the call and sank heavily into my chair. These conversations had exhausted me more than I'd expected. Not physically, emotionally. Saying out loud what I'd been holding in for years was both liberating and agonizing. The next call followed from Avery. Her voice sounded worried. "Grandpa, what's going on?" "Mom just called me hysterical, saying you've sold the house and are kicking them out on the street." "Is that true?" I sighed. Poor Avery having to be in the middle of a family conflict. Partially, I answered honestly. I did sell the house, but I'm not kicking anyone out on the street. They have 30 days to find a new place to live. But Grandpa, I don't understand. Her voice sounded confused. How could you sell the house? It belonged to Mom and Dad, didn't it? No, honey, I said softly. The house has always belonged to me. I bought it 20 years ago, but I never told anyone about it. There was a pause during which Avery was probably trying to process this information. You telling me that all this time? She began, all this time your parents have been living in my house, not the other way around, I confirmed. And we're charging me money for rent. Ironic, isn't it? But why didn't you ever talk about it? I could hear the bewilderment in her voice. Why did I hide it? Because I knew that once the truth came out, your parents and Uncle Weston would want their share, I explained. I won fellatry, Avery, a big one. I bought a house with the money and put the balance in an account. If they found out, there wouldn't be a trace of the money a year later. You didn't trust them, she said. I knew them too well. I corrected and time proved me right. Look how they reacted when I refused to increase the rent. Your mother literally kicked me out of my own house. Avery was silent for a while, digesting the information. Mom says you did it out of revenge, she said finally. That you wanted to punish them? I wondered. Was it revenge? Yes, partly. I couldn't deny that I felt some satisfaction in imagining Gina's shock, but that wasn't all. I did it because I was tired, I said honestly. Tired of lying, of pretending, of having to justify every dollar I spent. I wanted freedom, Avery, to be able to do with my money as I saw fit without fear of someone reaching out and demanding their share. I understand, she said quietly. But it's still cruel, Grandfather. They're without a home now. They have money to rent or buy a new house. I objected. They're not on the street and they have 30 days, more than enough time to find a place to live. You're probably right, Avery sighed. It's just that this is all so unexpected. I don't know what to think. You don't have to choose sides, sweetheart, I said softly. I'll still love you no matter what you decide. I know, Grandpa. Her voice trembled. I'm just afraid I won't be able to see you anymore. Mom is furious. She says she'll never forgive you. It's her choice, I said, but you can always visit me whenever you want. My door is always open to you. After talking to Avery, I felt drained. It was as if all the emotions I'd been holding back for years had burst out in one day and left a scorched desert. There was no triumph, no satisfaction of revenge, just fatigue. In the strange relief of not having to pretend anymore, I turned my phone off, not wanting any more conversations. Enough for today. Tomorrow would be another day, and maybe the passions would settle down a bit, though I doubted it. In the evening, you went out for a short walk. The weather was warm, and there was the smell of blossoming trees in the air. I walked slowly, thinking about the events of the day, about the shock in Gina's voice, about Weston's anger, about Avery's confusion, about how one decision made 20 years ago to hide the winnings and buy the house had led to today. Was I right to do that? It's hard to say. Maybe if I had been honest with my kids from the beginning, things would have turned out differently. Maybe knowing about my money, they would have shown more respect, more care, or more likely, they would have just squandered my savings faster. I remembered Vivian, her wisdom, her ability to see through people. She'd always said that secrets destroy families from the inside out, slowly but surely, like termites destroy a tree. Was she right? Had I destroyed me family with my lies? Or had it already been destroyed by my children's greed and selfishness? I didn't know things were. I doubted I would ever know it. But one thing I knew for sure was that I no longer wanted to live a lie. Whatever happened next, whatever the outcome of this story, I would meet him with open eyes and a clear conscience. Back in the apartment, I turned on my phone. 10 missed calls from Gina, 5 from Weston, 2 from Avery. A few messages I didn't bother to read. I muted the sound and put the phone on the nightstand. Tomorrow. I deal with all of this. Tomorrow. Tonight. I just wanted some peace. I sat in a chair by the window, watching the sunset over Slidell. A strange sense of freedom swept over me, as if the heavy weight I'd been carrying for 20 years had finally fallen from Miss Holders. Yes, I had hurt my children. Yes, they would probably never forgive me. But I was no longer a prisoner of my own lies, no longer a victim of their manipulations. For the first time in a long time, I felt real. Not a poor old man dependent on his daughter's charity, not a stingy father refusing to help his'n, but just a man. Earl Cunningham, a 77-year-old widower who had the right to manage his life and his money as he saw fit. It wasn't a triumph. It was simply a release. 3 weeks have passed since the day Gina learned the truth about the house. In that time, my life had changed dramatically. The deal was successful, and I received a check for $735,000 after all fees and taxes were paid. The money was deposited into my account, joining the balance of the winnings I had so carefully kept all these years. The first thing I did with my newfound wealth was to buy a small but cozy house in the southern part of Slidell. It was in story with 3 bedrooms, a spacious living room, and a veranda overlooking a well-kept garden. It had cost $520,000, considerably less than I'd gotten for selling the old house, but it was much more practical for a lonely old man. Now stairs, wide doorways, a convenient layout, everything for comfortable living. The realtor who helped me with the purchase, an energetic woman named Helen Maroro, was surprised when I paid for the house in full mortgage-free. "That's rare these days, Mr. Cunningham," she said as we signed papers. "Most buyers take out a loan." "I'm too old for credit," I replied with a smile. "I prefer to own what I have fully and unconditionally." After I bought the house, I started fixing it up. For the first time in years, I could spend money without thinking about what Gina or Noah would say. I bought new furniture, comfortable, high quality, chosen for my taste, not for economy reasons. I ordered a large armchair with an adjustable backrest, which I had long dreamed of. I bought a modern TV with a large screen to watch old movies that I loved so much. Renewed his closet, throwing away the worn-out shirts and pants he had worn for years for fear of appearing wasteful. But the greatest pleasure was seeing a doctor, not the one Gina drove me to, constantly reminding me of the cost of the visit, but a specialist recommended to me by a neighbor, Dr. Phelps. An experienced gerontologist gave me a complete summation, prescribed more effective medications for my arthritis, and even recommended a physical therapist who helped me develop an exercise program to improve my mobility. "For someone your age, you're in great shape, Mr. Cunningham," Dr. Phelps said after the exam. "With proper care and treatment, you can live many more years of active life." Those words were a balm to my soul. For years, I had listened to Gina tell me how I was fading and needing more and more care. It was good to know that my health wasn't as bad as she tried to convince me. While I was settling into my new place, Gina and Noah were feverishly looking for a place to live. Avery told me about it during our regular phone conversations. She wasted only one of the family to keep in touch with me after the house scandal, as she called it. "They're looking at apartments, but everyone's not happy," she informed me one evening. "Mom says nothing compares to the old house, and Dad is angry about the cost of rent. They fight all the time." "I'm sorry you have to witness this," I said sincerely. "Not your fault, Grandpa," Avery sighed. "Well, technically it is, but I understand why you did it." I probably would have gotten tired of the constant nagging and demands, too. It was so like Avery to try to see a situation from different angles. In her 19, she had a wisdom that her parents lacked. How did Uncle Weston react to all of this? I asked, though I guessed the answer. He's furious, Avery confirmed. He says how you betrayed the whole family, that you're selfish and all that. But you know what's funny? When Mom told him about your money, the first thing he did was call and ask for a loan to expand the business right in the middle of Askendel. I wasn't surprised. Weston was always like that. Even when he was angry, he'd take advantage. What about? Your parents? Are they still mad at me? Mom is, Avery answered after a short pause. She says she'll never forgive you for cheating and kicking us out of the house. Dad, he's more angry about having to pay for a new place. You know, Dad, it's all about money for him. I did. Noah's always been a financial analyst, not just by trade, but by vocation. Every decision in his life has been through the prism of profit and loss. Had they found anything suitable? I asked, feeling a slight prick of conscience. I think so, Avery replied. An apartment in a new complex near the center. It's not as big as the house, but it's a decent place. My mom still wasn't happy, saying it was a step backward in their lives. I didn't say anything. Gina had always been obsessed with status, the trappings of success. Moving from a big house to an apartment, even a nice one, was a blow to her ego. When are you moving into your new house? Avery changed the subject. Already. Moved in, I answered. I moved the last of my stuff in yesterday. You should come by sometime. I think you'll like it. I will, she promised. Just don't tell Mom. She forbid me to see you. It will be our secret, I assured her. After our conversation, I sat on the new veranda, enjoying the warm evening and a cup of tea. It was strange how things had turned out. For years I had lived a lie, pretending to be a poor old man, dependent on my daughter's favor. Now that the truth was out, I was free. But a price of that freedom was my relationship with most of the family. Was it worth it? It's hard to say that. Sometimes in moments of weakness, I doubted my decision. Maybe it was worth it to keep playing the game, to endure humiliation and nagging for the sake of preserving at least the semblance of family ties. But then I remembered the cold calculation in Gina's eyes when she'd demanded an increase in rent. Weston's greed, always asking for more than I could give. The constant feeling that I was a burden, that my presence was only tolerated because of the money I brought in. No, I decided freedom was worth the price. The ability to live by my own rules, to spend my own money without excuses, to not have. To fear being kicked out of your own home. It was worth breaking up a relationship that had long since stopped being healthy. Avery kept her promise and visited me a few days later. Her eyes widened when she saw my new home. "Wow, Grandpa," she exclaimed, looking around the spacious living room with new furniture and modern appliances. "It's amazing. Much better than I expected." "What did you expect?" I asked with a smile. That I'd be living in a shack. "No, of course not," she laughed. "It's just that Mom said you probably moved out to some cheap apartment on the outskirts. She has no idea that you've got all this stuff." She circled the room, noticing the quality furniture, the new TV, the collection of books neatly arranged on the shelves. "She doesn't need to know," I said. "Let her think what she wants. We spent the afternoon together." I showed Avery the house, the garden, the new computer I'd bought so I could learn how to use the internet. We cooked dinner together, a real dinner with quality food I could now afford, not the cheap pasta and watered-down sauce Gina fed me. "You look happy, Grandpa," Avery remarked as we sat on the porch after dinner. "More relaxed, I guess." "I am," I admitted. "For the first time in a long time, I feel free. No need to prove anything to anyone. No excuses for existing." "I'm happy for you," she said sincerely. "I really am." "You deserve to be happy. So do you, sweetheart." I took her hand. "By the way, there's something I wanted to talk to you about." I've set up a trust account in your name for your education and your future." "What?" She looked shocked. "Grandpa, you don't have to." "I want to." I interrupted her. "You're the only one in this family who really cared about me. Not about my money, but about me. You deserve a chance at a good education, at a life of your own choosing without having to worry about money." Avery's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you. But what will Mom and Dad say? Why would they know?" I winked at her. "This is between you and me. You can manage the money when you graduate from college. Until then, it's just going to accumulate in an account." Avery hugged me tightly, just like when I was a kid. "You're the best grandpa in the world," she said. "Despite all your deceptions and secrets," I laughed, feeling a warming sensation in my heart. At least one relationship in my family remained unbroken. A month after Gina and Noah moved into their new apartment, the unexpected happened. Weston called me for the first time since our last heated conversation. "Dad?" His voice sounded unusually soft. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I answered cautiously, suspecting a trick. "Are you?" Good, good," he coughed. "Listen, I've been thinking about our last conversation. Maybe I was too harsh. You know, I'm always a hothead when it comes to family." "I appreciate your apology," I said neutrally. "Yeah, I'd like to stop by your place if that's okay. See how you're settling in, maybe help with something." "There. It is." I could almost hear the gears clicking in Weston's head. He'd found out about my money, my new house, and now he wanted to repair the relationship, not out of remorse or love, but out of possible gain. "That's very nice of you," I said, "but I'm perfectly settled. Everything that needs to be done has been done." "Yeah," I could hear the disappointment in his voice. "Well, maybe I'll just stop by and see you. It's been so long since we had a proper conversation." "Maybe." "Some other time," I said evasively. "Right now, I'm a little busy with setting up the house." After a few more attempts to make an appointment, Weston gave up and said goodbye, promising to call later. I knew he would call, especially if he heard from Avery, who I hoped would keep her mouth shut about the trust I'd set up for my granddaughter. Gina held on longer. For almost 2 months after the eviction, she didn't make contact. But one day, as I was gardening at my new house, her car pulled up. I straightened up, leaning on the rake, and watched her get out of the car, looking around my house with undisguised amazement. "Earl," she said instead of greeting me. "Nice place you got here." "Thanks," I replied calmly. "To what do I owe this visit?" She stepped closer, scrutinizing my face. "You look good," she said with a touch of surprise. "Healthier than before. A proper diet, a good doctor, and a lack of constant stress works wonders," I said. Gina pressed her lips together, but she held back a sharp reply. "Avery told me you bought this house with the money from the sale of your old house." "Yes," I confirmed. "It's much more practical for someone my age. No stairs, all on one level." She nodded, looking at the well-tended garden, the new garden furniture on the veranda, the freshly painted front. "Must have cost a lot of money." "I can afford it," I replied simply. Gina sighed as if gathering her strength. "Look, Dad, I know we didn't break up in the best way. I was shocked, angry about your deception. But as time went on, I thought maybe we should try to make things right. We're still a family." "Family?" I repeated thoughtfully. "It's funny how you're only bringing that up now. Not when you kicked me out of the house. Not when you made me pay for a room in my own house." "I didn't know it was your house," she objected. "You never told us the truth." "And if I had?" I asked. "What would have changed? Would you have treated me with more respect, or would you just demand more money?" Gina didn't answer, but her silence was more eloquent than any words. You didn't come here for reconciliation, I said, realizing the truth. You came here because you found out about my money, my new house, because you realized you'd missed your chance to get your share. It's not fair, she said quietly. You're judging me without even giving me a chance. I gave you a chance every day for the 5 years I lived with you, I replied. Every day was a chance to treat me like a father, not a source of income. You didn't take any of them. We stood in silence, looking at each other across a chasm of mutual resentment and misunderstanding. Finally, Gina turned toward the car. I thought you'd be lonely and miserable, she said over her shoulder. That you'd realize how much you needed a family, but you seem to be doing just fine on your own. Yes, I agreed. I'm doing fine. She got in her car and drove away without saying goodbye. I watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. It was probably the last time we'd see each other, but maybe it was better. For both of us. The next few months passed in relative peace. I set up my new home, gardened, found a hobby club where older people like me met to discuss books and play chess. Avery visited me regularly, sometimes staying for the weekend. She talked about college, about her plans to become a journalist, about trips she wanted to take. Weston called several times, each time with a barely concealed request for money. I politely declined, saying that all my funds had already been dispersed. He quickly lost interest in the conversation after that. Gina didn't call or come by again. I learned from Avery that he and Noah had bought a smaller house than before, but still spacious and in a good neighborhood. The relationship between them had become strained. Noah accused Gina of missing out on a gold mine by not having a better relationship with me. Sometimes I wondered if I had done the right thing by revealing my secret in this way. Maybe I should have gradually told the children the truth, given them time to get used to the idea that their father wasn't as poor as they thought. But then I remembered the cold calculation in Gina's eyes, Weston's greed, and I realized nothing would have changed. They'd just get to my money faster. On a bright spring morning, I was sitting on the veranda of my new house, enjoying a cup of good coffee, real freshly ground coffee, not the cheap instant stuff Gina was buying. The morning paper was in front of me. I still preferred paper to electronic, even though I'd mastered the internet and even started an email account to communicate with Avery. The garden I'd lovingly landscaped over the past few months was beginning to bloom. Tulips, daffodils, early roses, bright spots of color against the fresh greenery. I hired a gardener who came once a week to help with the hard work, but took care of most of the plant care. It was an enjoyable activity that gave me a sense of fulfillment and connection to nature. My phone rang, breaking the morning idyll. I looked at the screen. Gina. Strange. She hadn't called in months. What could have caused her to break the silence? I stared at the blinking screen, wondering if I should answer. What would she say? Another accusation, a new attempt at manipulation, or maybe something had happened to Avery. The last thought made me reach for the phone, but I stopped myself. If something serious had happened to Avery, I'd get a call from the hospital or the police, not Gina, who had avoided contact with me for months. No. It was probably another attempt to repair the relationship, not out of love or remorse, but out of calculation. Perhaps Weston had told her about the trust for Avery, though I hoped my granddaughter had kept that secret. Or maybe Noah was having financial problems and they decided to try to get some help from Rich Daddy. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then hit the mute button and put the phone screen down on the table. Gina could leave a message if it was really something important, and I wasn't about to interrupt my morning for another round of manipulation and accusations. I went back to my coffee and the paper. The sun was rising over the key-tainted accusations. I went back to my coffee and the paper. Garden, promising a warm spring day. Birds sang in the bushes. The breeze gently ruffled the leaves of the trees. The world continued on its way, indifferent to small human dramas, and I was part of that world, not a poor old man dependent on his daughter's favor, not a stingy father refusing to help his son, but just a man, Earl Cunningham, a 77-year-old widower who could finally live by his own rules without having to justify or pretend. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, master not only of my home but of my life, and that feeling was priceless, far more valuable than all the money I'd ever had or lost. The phone stopped ringing. I took a sip of coffee, turned the page of the newspaper, and smiled at the new day.